Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be talking about my winter book recommendations. It's mid-December, there's snow on the ground, and it's the perfect time of year to pick up a wintry read. So today I have a variety of different books. I've definitely got the cozy fantasies that a lot of people are interested in, but I have some horror, some contemporary fiction, and historical fiction, as well as a murder mystery. So I think there is something for everyone on this list. So I'm going to start out with a classic, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. If you haven't read this, now is the perfect time. And if you have read it, I think it's time to pick it up again, because this is such a cozy, wonderful fantasy. It's about 4 siblings who find the magical land Narnia after going through a wardrobe. This land is in a perpetual winter because of an evil ice queen, and basically these 4 siblings need to go on an adventure and fight this evil to restore Narnia to its former glory. It is so cozy and wonderful. There's great characters, Mr. Tumnus, Aslan, Turkish Delight. It is the perfect read to pick up this winter. The next one is another one that is the quintessential winter read. It's called The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey, and it is based on a Russian folktale called The Snow Maiden. It is set in 1920s Alaska, and this couple go there to be homesteaders after the loss of their firstborn child. And they discover in this harsh land this young girl, a snow child, one evening, and she becomes the daughter that they always wanted. But we don't know if she is really truly just a lonely orphan or if she has something magical about her. There's a lot of magical realism in this story, and it is beautiful and also bittersweet, but the perfect read to pick up this time of year. So another one, if you're looking for those wintry fantasies, I recommend is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, and this is the first book in a trilogy called the Winter Night Trilogy. And this is set in the wintry Russian wilderness. It's about a young girl named Vasilisa, and so she lives with her family in this village, and this village believes in these sort of house spirits, the old ones. And they really honor them, and in return, these spirits keep them safe. After the death of her mother, her father goes to Moscow and brings back a bride, and she is extremely religious, and so she bans the honoring of these house spirits and is trying to essentially turn Vasilisa into a good religious girl or send her to a convent to get rid of her. And as they stop believing, evil spirits start to come into the town and cause a lot of danger. There's a frost demon and magic, and it is just a beautiful wintry story that I think you'll find to be quite fun. If you've already read that one, I recommend picking up Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, because it has very similar vibes. And this one is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. It's about Miriam, and she is the daughter of a family of moneylenders, but her father is extremely poor at it. He doesn't like to collect money, and so basically her family's suffering for it. So she decides to take it upon herself to become this moneylender and is very good at it. I can't fully recall how it goes, but I believe that there is also sort of a magical frost demon element to it, and she attracts his attention from her boasts. I believe that she can turn silver into gold. So there's her, there's also 2 other female characters in different positions in this world, and it is again just a perfect winter fantasy read with a romance element that I think a lot of people would enjoy. If you're not into fantasy, that's totally cool. I recommend a mystery called The Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. And this is the perfect cozy mystery for the winter, because it's set on a train that has been stalled by a big snowbank, I believe somewhere in Eastern Europe, and a murder happens, and Hercule Poirot has to figure out who did it from this really interesting, diverse cast of characters. I think it is just one of those ones that you would want to curl up on the couch and read, maybe in front of a fire, because it has those cozy vibes. I listened to it via audiobook with a narrator, Dan Stevens, and I thought he did such an incredible job. So if you're interested in that, I think that one would be a really good one to pass the time. The next one is a nonfiction book called Dead Mountain, The Untold Story of the Dyatlov Pass Incident by Donnie Eicher. And he is doing investigative journalism to try to figure out what happened to 9 very experienced young hikers who died in an extremely strange way in 1959 in the Ural Mountains. And so part of the book is him basically tracking their progress. And then another part of the book is him trying to figure out what actually happened to them, because they were found, they had abandoned their tent in the middle of the night and had run off in different directions in a state of undress. And they were found, some of them with very strange wounds that killed them. And it was one of those ones back in the day where there was all sorts of conspiracy theories about it, because nobody could come up with an adequate explanation. So he's following them and he's trying to figure out what happened. And it's just a really fascinating tale set in a very wintry setting. So if that sounds interesting to you, I recommend picking that one up. Maybe you're interested in horror in the winter, because I know that I really love to read horror any time of year. So a perfect middle grade horror story that you could pick up is called Dead Voices by Catherine Arden. And so that's the same author as The Bear and the Nightingale. And so she's really good at this middle grade horror series. And this is the second book. I would recommend reading Small Spaces first, but if you don't want to, or you don't have time for that, I think you would grasp the story very quickly without reading the first book. And so this one is set in the winter time in the ski lodge with these 3 plucky kids and their parents, and they're stuck in the ski lodge because of a snowstorm. So again, this evil smiling man's back, and there's ghosts haunting them, and they basically have to figure out what's going on to defeat the smiling man. Again, it's awesome. It's snowy. I think Catherine Arden does a really good job of making it accessible to kids, but also to adults, and a really quick read if you're looking for something snowy and scary for this winter season. But if you're looking for something scarier, I really recommend reading The Shining by Stephen King, because this is the perfect time of year to read it. It's set in the haunted Overlook Hotel, which is in the Colorado mountains, and Jack Torrance and his wife Wendy and their son Danny go to live at the Overlook Hotel because he's trying to overcome writer's block, and they decide to be caretakers over the winter. The previous caretaker killed himself, I believe, and his entire family, but these guys need some money, and so they decide that this is the right move for their family, but obviously the Overlook Hotel has other plans for them. It is so scary, so wintry, and if you're looking to be freaked out this winter, this is the one for you. If you're looking for something less scary and maybe a little bit more of an adventure, historical fiction, I highly recommend picking up To the Bright Edge of the World by Eowyn Ivey. And so this is the author of The Snow Child, and she's just so great at writing about wintry settings. This one's very atmospheric, and it is set in 1885 with a man who is a decorated war hero, and he's leading a small band of men on an expedition that is deemed to be impossible to venture up the Wolverine River and pierce the vast, untamed Alaska territory. And so we're following him and his expedition, and he's sending letters back to his wife that he's left behind, who is pregnant. But she's going through her own trials and discovering who she really is during this time as well, and they're very much in love. So if that sounds good to you, I really recommend it. It was really beautiful. It's really an adventure, and it's very atmospheric in this wintry Alaska challenging setting. For something that is a bit more intense, but is an incredible, like 5-star historical fiction, I recommend picking up The Orenda by Joseph Boyden. And I do recommend looking at some trigger warnings for this one because there's many graphic scenes that I did find to be, somewhat difficult. But if you can get past that, I think the story is just phenomenal. And because it's been a minute since I read it, I'm just going to read a little bit of the back page to you. It says, the Orenda opens with a brutal massacre and the kidnapping of the young Iroquois Snowfalls, a spirited girl with a special gift. Her captor, Bird, is an elder and one of the Huron Nation's great warriors and statesmen. And it has been years since the murder of his family, and yet they are never far from his mind. And so he takes in Snowfalls and he sort of recognizes in her the ghost of his young daughter, and he tries to integrate her into his family. Bird's people have battled the Iroquois for as long as he can remember, and both tribes now face a new, more dangerous threat from afar in the form of a Jesuit missionary called Christophe. And so he's the third character. So it really follows these three different perspectives and the sort of historical background of these warring nations and the coming of the Jesuit missionaries and the impact on these nations. And then it says, as these three souls dance each other through intricately woven acts of duplicity, small battles erupt into bigger wars, and a nation emerges from worlds in flux. I just remember thinking that this book was incredibly powerful, and it's not an easy read, but if you are looking for something a little bit different, you want to be like moved and read something that is this intense but powerful, I think this one is one you absolutely need to pick up. For something that is a bit more serious, but set in that wintry small town setting, I recommend picking up Beartown by Frederick Bachman. And this is a contemporary fiction. Frederick Bachman has written some really wonderful books, A Man Called Uwe, and the one that's my grandmother tells you to say, my grandmother, anyways, the one about the grandmother who wants to apologize, which was really beautiful. And those ones were a bit more, they had serious tones to them, but they had these quirky, funny characters. This one is very different. It is definitely a more serious book about some really difficult topics. So again, look up some trigger warnings if that's something that you typically like to do. This one is about a town called Beartown that is really falling on hard times, but they have this collective love of hockey, and their junior hockey team is about to have a semifinal game in the Nationals. And so people are really pinning a lot of hopes on this town and this hockey team. So it says here, being responsible for the hopes of an entire town is a heavy burden, and the semifinal match is the catalyst for a violent act that will leave a young girl traumatized and a town in turmoil. Accusations are made, and like ripples on a pond, they travel through all of Beartown, leaving no resident unaffected. Beartown explores the hopes that bring a small community together, the secrets that tear it apart, and the courage it takes for an individual to go against the grain. This one, was very powerful. It's the first book in a duology, and I haven't picked up the second one, but I know that it has really high ratings as well. So if that sounds good, it is definitely a powerful story, but has that wintry setting that I think would be great for this time of year. And then my last book that I wanted to recommend is a short but sweet book. It's actually nonfiction, and it's called 84 Charing Crossroad by Helen Hanff, or Hanff, I'm not really sure how to pronounce her last name. And this author, she's American, and for years she wrote letters to this man in a bookstore in London at 84 Charing Crossroad. And so this is a short book with the letters back and forth between this man and this woman over the years and the things that have gone on and the different sort of historical events that happened. It is beautiful and sad and so cozy, and I think it would be just the perfect read just for sort of a winter evening that will warm your heart. So that's the end of my video. I really hope that you found something that piques your interest for a wintry read, and I would love to know what you're picking up this winter and if you have any recommendations for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.